Welcome to Hey Chaplain. My name is Jared Altick, and I'm a chaplain with the police department. Hey Chaplain is the officer wellness podcast which brings you expertise and wisdom from police officers around the world. From the LAPD to Scotland Yard, the guests on Hey Chaplain are sharing their wisdom and experience so that you don't have to do everything the hard way. I hope that today you'll make it your goal to share this podcast with one other person. That's how podcasts grow. Tell someone that you listen to Hey Chaplain, explain how and where on their phone to get it, send them a link to your favorite episode, and most important, tell them why you feel Hey Chaplain has made a difference to you. Today our guest is Chaplain Mark Femmel. Mark is a friend of mine who is a chaplain in St. Louis, Missouri. I brought Mark on today because he's a kindred spirit, and I know he has a lot of great experience to share. Today we're talking about chaplaincy in general, and how it's the same and sometimes different between St. Louis and Kansas City. We're also talking about the trauma that police endure when confronted with innocent victims, like children and animals. Here's Chaplain Mark Femmel. Hello, Mark. How are you today?
I'm having an awesome day, Jared. Thank you for having me on today.
I'm glad to do it. We're meeting early in the morning at the time we're recording this, and you said you just took a cold plunge?
3 hours ago. Yep, it's 7:16 in the morning right now. 3 hours ago, I was jumping in the ice.
At 4 in the morning?
Best time to get the day started.
Oh, God bless you. I'm a natural night owl, and so my work causes me to have to get up early in the morning, but God bless you for getting up at 4 a.m. and getting into a tub of cold water.
So I'll tell you, I start my mornings at 4 a.m. I got a timer that goes off, or an alarm, and I'll tell you the reason why. So I'm a police chaplain, which I know we're going to get into in a little bit, but here in St. Louis, where I am, the shift starts at 6 a.m. And so I realized I cannot tell police officers that you bring a better you when you're fit if I'm not willing to get my workout in around their time. So if they start at 6, I got to be at the gym by 4:15 in order to get about an hour lift in, clean up, and then be there at roll call. So thanks to all the police officers for your long schedules. You have taught me the value of starting my day early. But see, when you start your day early, then everything else is on your own time. You know, you're not rushing to get ready. You're not rushing to get to work. You're not rushing to whatever. And just having that extra time just to start the day on my own terms, it's awesome. So now my day starts with the cold plunge.
Oh, God bless you. I have not. That's one thing I have not done, and I get it. I understand it. I've read about it, but I have never had any interest in getting into a tub of cold water.
First 30 seconds is hard, but it's just like if you're going to get into a swimming pool, you know, and it's like cold, and you know, it's just don't take the bandit off slowly. Just get in. So you just get in, you drop in, you take some deep breaths, and you get something to break your concentration. The worst thing is to talk about the cold. That's hard because then you're just thinking about it. But just jump in, and I'll tell you what, it wakes everything up. I mean, you are awake, you are alert. It is intense. It's awesome. It feels primal. So then it's cold water. Jump in, neck deep. It's great.
Oh, that's horrible. That's just horrible. There are listeners who are like, yes, this is awesome. There's listeners who are like, this is nightmare fuel. No.
I'll tell you what, Sean Ryan and Joe Rogan, who are listening to you, they're just like, Jared, come on, man. Come on. Get in there. Get in there, Jared.
I'm confident they're listening. Absolutely. Absolutely. So how long does it take you to get to the station, to the police station?
So I'm a chaplain for 2 departments. So St. Louis, oh my goodness. A lot of cities are like this, but St. Louis has about 110 distinct municipalities. And so I'm a chaplain for the St. Louis County, which is outside the city, everything around St. Louis, just not St. Louis City, which is its own police department. And then also I live in Maryland Heights. And so I am a police chaplain for Maryland Heights as well. I figure I should do both. And so each way, I'm about 7 minutes from the gym to the stations that I'm based out of.
Yeah, where I'm at, I have 3 patrol stations that I visit, and when I do the morning roll calls. So I'm up at 4:30, but I have a 30-minute drive to get to the earliest station. And as I go from station to station every half hour, I'm working my way geographically back toward my house. So when I'm done with that third station, I'm actually back in my part of town. And I'm not an early morning guy. It's tough, but to get up, I have to. That's my furthest station is the first one.
It's dedication, Jared. I hate commuting. Oh, I hate commuting, which is so weird because I talk to cops, and oftentimes cops don't want to live in their precinct, their jurisdiction, because they just know all the stuff that happens. And so they just want to be able to like drive home. But then it also gives them, like 30 minutes, 45 minutes just to kind of clear their head, listen to their music, just kind of like reset. And for me, though, I hate commuting. Oh, I hate commuting. I listen to podcasts all the time, which is how I came across you. And this is a great podcast. I can't believe I'm on Hey Chaplain. This is awesome. So thank you for this great thing you're doing, Jared. But cops, they'll often drive 10, 12 hours a day, just patrolling. And so for them, driving's no deal. But for me, if I'm not near, I'm going to hate the drive.
See, we have residency in our county too. So all the officers who work at our department have to live inside the county, which is kind of challenging because there's lots of great places to live just outside of our county. And it kind of hurts recruiting and retention when people have to leave nice homes and nice school districts to move, 5 minutes away. That's frustrating to people.
There's a lot of hardships that cops have to deal with that we don't even think about, like residency. Some of them are going to love the residency. Some of them are going to hate the residency. And you'll get that in the same department. There's just a lot of stuff that cops have to deal with the stress, which is why I feel just drawn to.
Why did you become a chaplain?
So here I'm in St. Louis, and there's lots of things that have happened with Ferguson, Michael Brown, just all the stuff that happened. And I'm a pastor here in St. Louis. I've been a pastor so far for 18 years. And I realized to be a silent majority, you're kind of doing nothing. In 2020, I was talking to a police officer in our congregation. And I said, there's got to be something I can do. And he goes, you could be a chaplain. So I said, all right, well, talk to the person who's in charge of whatever that is and have them reach out to me. And within probably a couple of days, the head chaplain here in St. Louis County, there's three. There's Sarge Byron Watson, Monsignor Breyer, and then also Rabbi Mark Shook. And the lead in those is Rabbi Mark Shook. So shout out to you, Mark. You're awesome. He had reached out to me in a couple of days. Got a cup of coffee together. And I think like a week later, I was already getting background checked and everything else.
That's fantastic response time because so many chaplains talk about trying to come on board and it taking months and months to cut through the bureaucracy and that kind of thing. Although, like I said, I think Rabbi Mark Shook, he's a pretty organized guy. And so I imagine if he sees a good candidate, he can make things happen pretty quick.
He's proactive. He is an incredible coordinator. He's also as a chaplain with the FBI. And so he's connected to a lot of like training programs, but he's been very proactive. He's been fantastic as a supporter. Great man, great friend. So he got me connected. And then I was at a fireman's banquet. There's an annual fireman's banquet here in Maryland Heights, and they do an award ceremony, and they always ask me to do the invocation, which I'm more than happy to do, to tell them how great they are and how they are showing people the face of Jesus. I was sitting there, and it turns out that the deputy chief was sitting there at the table, the deputy chief of the local police department for our municipality, and he was just sitting right there. He said, "I heard you're a chaplain for the county." I said, "I am." And he goes, "Are you interested in doing that for the city? I mean, you live in the city, you work in the city." And I said, "Well, go talk to whoever it is in charge of that for your municipality, because I've talked to officers before and nothing comes of it, but just let me know who is in charge of that, and have him send me an email." And he goes, "Well, I'm the major, the deputy chief, Jameson White." Shout out to him. He's awesome. To Jameson White. He's awesome. He goes, "I'm that person," and I'll reach out. That was on a Friday. And on Monday, I already had an email in my inbox saying, "All right, here, let's go to meet. We'll do your background check and you'll be on." So there I am.
When you're doing chaplaincy, chaplaincy often has kind of two hats. You have the officer wellness component, and then you have the on-scene serving the citizens component, doing crisis counseling and playing liaison between the public and the department, that kind of role. In your experience, are you doing more one than the other? Are you doing the two kind of equally? Do you get called out to scenes or do death notifications? what's your work look like?
So police chaplains are volunteers, and that's important. I'd like to just kind of touch on that at some point. Police chaplains are volunteers. So you'll have people who have seminary educations that have sunk, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in life career choices and trade-offs, who are volunteers who are, choosing to spend their free time. They could go fishing, but they're people who are highly trained and highly skilled. And if they're pastors, they've somehow managed to not mess it up so bad that they got fired, that people find them valuable, and they're volunteering. So I know it's not fun to have a chaplain or just a person in your car riding along, but these are volunteers who are there because they want to make a difference in your life. They're praying for you. They're caring about you. And, to have a God person in your car, I know nobody wants anybody looking over their shoulder, but because of all that, oftentimes departments are very hesitant to have non-staff interacting with the public because if we say or do something goofy, but so it all depends on the specific staff. I have been asked to come along on death notifications, which is an incredible thing because the officer doesn't want to be there because that's hard. But as a pastor, I deal with this all the time. And so this is definitely something that I can do and have helped with just because for me, it's just a normal Tuesday afternoon. For a police officer, they're just like, what if they start talking about feelings or crying? And I'm just like, yeah, well, we'll just kind of surf that wave when it comes. But for me, a lot of times I've been called. So I'm typically there for officer wellness, which is really what I'm hoping to be for officer wellness because, man, the typical officer, I've seen statistics all over the place. The typical person deals with like 3 to 4 traumatic events in their life, but police officers, they'll deal with hundreds over their career. And most of those are when they're just starting out. So they're usually in their young 20s, maybe mid 20s, maybe late 20s. And they deal with the majority of the critical events, the traumatic events, just in their first 5 or 6 years being on patrol or whatever, when they're least able and least equipped to deal with seeing a dead body, seeing a dead kid, smelling burned flesh. And if I get too graphic, by all means, please tell me. But I know there's been a lot of graphic things shared on your podcast. And if people don't want graphic, they could go listen to the Teletubbies or the Wiggles or something like that. But that's not your audience. But, it's so traumatic when they'll see those sort of things that they just don't have the ability or the experience to just kind of compartmentalize it or to continue to keep it in a space that does not consume every waking thought. And so that's really what I'm hoping to do, to talk to police officers and connect with police officers, just to help them process it. And talking about it does help. It just takes the sharpness of it away, keeps you from ruminating and only seeing that specific image or that specific smell or hearing those sounds. It just takes the sharpness. It's not going to take it away. It's not going to get rid of it. It's not going to swallow it up or suck the poison out, but it will help just kind of talking about it or just thinking through it or just revisiting it in a way with another person just helps it not force you into that ruminating tunnel vision where all you do is see that dead kid's eyes. I have been there when a community, they need a pastor, a chaplain to be there to help process the event that just happened. But, and I'm willing to do that. And I love doing that. But I'm in it because I want to be there for the police officers. And I think a good chaplain is going to see that, be there for the police officers. So if you got a chaplain who's willing to be there at a 6 a.m. roll call or a 6 p.m. roll call and ride along with you for a few hours, you got a person who genuinely cares about you. They're not going to rat you out. They're there because, they're praying for you and they want you to have a vibrant life, not just survive.
Yeah, I feel like, between the two different sides, dealing with citizens, crime victims, family of crime victims, and then dealing with officer wellness, I have, my heart is in one area, but I know that I have usefulness in the other. The other night, I got called out middle of the night to do a death notification with a couple detectives from our sheriff's office, and I did a good job. I know I did. That's something that I teach at the police academy. I have done it. I've been out in the field and I've done this many, many, many times. I've lost track of how many notifications I've done. And so I know what kind of questions they're going to have, what kind of concerns. And so I come on scene and I can anticipate a lot of how they're going to react and what they're going to need. And I can turn on the, concerned, caring, pastoral father figure mode. And I'm good at that. And I think those detectives were really pleased. It's the first time I had done a notification with the one, and maybe only the second or third time with the other. And I think they were very pleased that I knocked on the door. I made the notification. I anticipated the follow-up questions, and I was able to take the lead in a very awkward, difficult thing. And then I could just turn to the detectives and say, okay, well, Detective so-and-so, he has a phone number for you and he has some more information. And they appreciated me doing that. I was useful to them. But at the same time, that's not where my heart is at. My heart is with the officers. I want them to process in a healthier way, like what you were describing. And so going to the roll calls and doing the ride-alongs and being present with my officers and building rapport with them is really more where my heart is at. I am happy to be useful in a situation where I interface with the public, but I'd rather spend time behind closed doors with the officers.
You want to do that for the officers because it takes that off their shoulders. And officers don't want to do that. They don't want to be in the situation where it's an unresolvable situation. The person who died is going to still be dead at the end of the conversation. And cops are fixers. They care about their communities. And oftentimes they really get connected to the people that they're serving. And so if I could be the person that's just sort of the tip of the spear in a very difficult conversation, it's not going to have and here's your loved one back. I would love to do that. I would love to do that for that person. And then, of course, you're in the moment and you're looking at a person in their eyes and you're trying to tell them that, their child is dead or their aunt is dead. And you want, you connect with them and you want to make their pain less. And if I can do that for a police officer, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
I think police officers also appreciate a co-responder coming out and taking the heat off of them because I'm not wearing a police uniform. And so there's times where I'm with uniformed officers and it's the middle-aged guy wearing civilian clothes and sometimes I might have a department polo on or something like that. But by and large, I'm dressed as a civilian and that takes a little bit of the heat off of them and they can focus on what they need to focus on, especially if there's like an active investigation, if they're manning the yellow tape, if they've got responsibilities, then I can interact with the public. And, let's say it's a family of a crime victim. I can help with victim services, do more of the social work kind of activity with that family where the police can be doing investigative police work and we can kind of divide and conquer that way. And so, like I say, I think it's a useful thing, but tell me a little bit more about how you build rapport with officers.
So for me, I know no officer wants somebody sitting in their car doing ride-alongs and watching what they're doing, and they're making sure that they're doing everything. And, as a volunteer, you don't report to anybody. And so if I had somebody looking over my shoulder, or I had a seminary professor following me around and sitting right there next to me every time I'm preaching, it'd be frustrating. So I understand that. So my main way to build rapport is I'll wake up early to get that workout in. And then I will go there to roll call. Try to get there a few minutes early. They don't want me there too early, of course. I mean, the department does, and everybody officially does. But, they want to screw around. They want to talk. They want to, trash talk each other and catch up and, tell each other how, they're such a loser for how they played Call of Duty last night, whatever. So I'll get in there just a little bit before roll call. And so then I'll just kind of sit there at the table and I'll just, they'll just be just kind of chatting. And for people who just might be a spectator, roll call is when the officers come in at the beginning of the shift. It's the only time that they really get together as a group. Police officers, it's a very solitary thing. In some places here in the state of Missouri, the state troopers, they will not see each other for months at a time because they get in the car, they do their runs, and then they go back home. And so it's a very lonely thing. And so, I just like being there for that socialization time. So then, the sergeant or the lieutenant will come in and they'll brief everybody on things that are going on. And so then everybody takes a slow walk to the car, just kind of catching up and chatting. And then I'm just there for the whole thing. And then it's funny because they cuss a lot less when the chaplain's there. Except there's that one or two who cuss a lot more when the chaplain's there. And, they'll be people, they'll be humans. And it's funny because they're trying to get a rise out of me.
Yeah.
And I don't try to outcuss the cops, but I'm never offended. They're just words and, it's just how they're venting stress and speaking out trauma. But man, I just love when they'll, I'll be a part of those conversations and just, when you show up month after month and roll call after roll call, they just kind of know you, they recognize you and they're looking forward to you being there. Now I know I listened to you quite a bit and, I talked quite a bit. I know you'll go for long shifts and, the long deal, but usually I'll be there for roll call and then I'll ride along for about 2.5 hours unless something critical is happening. And I'll be upfront with them about that. So that way they don't have me watching them the whole shift, when they want to talk to their wife or, look at baby pictures or, sit side to side with another cop or, they're not babysitting the chaplain, but I'll be with them for, for that half hour or whatever for the roll call. And then about 2 hours in the car, just kind of catching up with them, hanging out with them, talking video games, talking workouts, talking life stuff. Sometimes we'll talk about struggles in life, but then of course there's every so often you get somebody who just wants to poke the bear of theology. Like if Christians are all that, why do priests do this? Or what was God doing before he created everything? Wouldn't he get bored? Just stuff like that. And in my denomination, we're extraordinarily trained. And so, we could always dance on that in a diplomatic and a gentle way. But they always try to sometimes they'll try to stump the pastor, and it's fun. But it's just putting in time and just being there. So if you're a chaplain listening, just put in your time and just hang out. You're going to feel like the hot potato, but you're not the hot potato. You're a person that God wants to have in that situation. And you're probably the only person who genuinely cares about this person that is not getting paid to be a part of their life. And if you're a cop, if there's a chaplain who's just kind of hanging around the precinct, please invite him into your car. He doesn't have to be there very long. You can even make up an excuse like, hey, for the first 2 hours is just kind of processing stuff, we can get along. But then, I'm going to have to drop you off at the station. And then the chaplain's going to get the good feeling that he did something good. But also, you're going to get this opportunity to connect with somebody. And if it's terrible, you've dealt with goofy people and awkward people. They're going to be out of your car in like an hour or 2 hours. But you do have a volunteer who just wants to hang out and just ride along with you because he or she actually cares about you as a human and wants you to have a happy retirement. They want you to have happy days off. They're just there to support you because they care about you. If they didn't care about you, they'd go fishing. They'd go sit in a kayak. So if you have a chaplain that's hanging around your station, it would mean the world to them if you just let them hop in your car and just take a ride with you for an hour or two.
I try to advise chaplains, when you're visiting a roll call or doing a ride along, do not try to be special. Just, you can be curious, and ask questions, but don't try to be special. Don't try to give that home run insight. Don't try to solve all the problems. Don't try to show off how much you know about something. Just be humble and ask good questions and be curious and be present. God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth. Try to respect that ratio. And that's difficult because most of us are talkers. Most of us, are people who stand up on Sunday morning and tell people how much we know. And you have to resist that temptation to be special.
And the people in your parish, they've already decided that they want you to tell them about God.
Right.
But if you're a chaplain, you are cold calling this person. So yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree with you that don't try to preach the sermon or knock it out of the park. Be a friend, be a human. Find something cool about you. And if there's nothing cool about you, get a cool hobby. Do something cool. Like just recently, the cold plunge thing, right? But just recently, I'm making beef jerky. Why? Because it's freaking cool. So, I make old school beef jerky, lots of pepper. And now I'm also, I just got a batch. If you were here, Jared, I'd give you a piece.
Oh, I'm a beef jerky guy too. And so that's nice. Yeah.
The one I've got now is spicy pineapple. Oh, it is so good. It is so good.
So spicy and sweet, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I lift weights. I like to do archery. So if you want to be a cool chaplain, do cool things and let that kind of get in the conversation. Don't do the Insta sermon.
Tell me about your work there in St. Louis.
So I'm going to start off with a sissy story. All right. So here we go. Touchy feely. All right. I'm a big guy, but this is something that stuck with me. One time I was riding along with a cop and we got a wildlife call. And so I'm like, oh, okay, this is interesting. I haven't heard about this. And so the cop goes, yep, this happens about once every week or two. I'm like, what? And then he goes, yeah. So we ride up on this thing and he had kind of debriefed me, but I'm going to tell it in a different way. So we ride up on this thing and there's this poor, cute little deer, this poor, cute little doe. And she's probably somebody's mommy. She's probably got like 7 or 8 kids running around. And poor little mommy, somehow she must have gotten hit by a car. So she's not going to walk and she's not moving. So we walk up to this front door and this deer is like sitting right on top of the porch. Right. And if you're a cop, you know where this is going. If you're a chaplain or a civilian, you may not. And so he's looking at this deer, and you would imagine that with all the medical kits, he would bind up the leg and pet the deer and it'd be hopping off on its way, but it's never going to recover. And we're walking up and it's not even trying to get away. It's been dying probably for a day and a half. And so it's just there. And of course, everybody in the neighborhood comes out when the cop car drives up, and people have their phones out and they're going to take videos. And so the officer just goes over, and I'm with him and I'm helping him do this, talking to the different people. And so it's like, all right, well, we got a deer that needs to be released and put out of its misery. It's never going to get better. You could take call a vet. No, that's not like how this is going to work. I mean, it's already hacking up blood. I mean, it's not even willing to live anymore.
We don't put deer on life support.
Right. I mean, it's already hacking up blood. It's not even trying to get away. I mean, you can tell the internal bleeding. It's done. And so I had to talk to these people about going in. There's one old man who just would not go inside. It's just like, all right. Well. So my role was to stand between old man and this deer that's about to happen. And so if he put the deer out of its misery on the front porch, he's going to make a hole in the porch, right? Because police officers, the things that they think of are amazing. They're so well trained. So it's like, all right, we got to get him into this little, it's not a flower bed, but it's like a flower bed that used to have flowers, and it's just kind of miscellaneous shrubbery. And so I kind of help him get it over, and so then just bang, and then the deer was done. I was like, wow. Do you know how many reports he had to fill out about that?
Oh, I bet.
Like 100 years ago, it just been like, yep, just put another round in the chamber. But now, just so many reports. And so deer was gone. That struck me. It struck me that it didn't strike me more because it made sense. But, that's just something. I imagine somebody who has had to put down 322 deer by the time they're 24 years old. It's going to strike them that it doesn't strike them. When people are like, oh, that's Bambi. A lot of these officers, they just like pick that trauma up. And it's not major trauma, but it's tiny, little pecks.
Yeah. A lot of people may not know how many deer get hit on highways through a large swath of our country. They're aware that, oh, that's a thing that could happen, is that your car could hit a deer. People have no idea how frequently it happens. And so that is a part of we have a lot of times we'll have like animal services or animal control where there are members of, sometimes are civilian employees of a police department that will go out and deal with dead animals. But a lot of times the animal's not dead. It's still living. And so you have to go out and euthanize this deer. And I've had cops who, it's not that they've done a lot of that, but they didn't realize they ever would have to do it. And so they're a new rookie cop and they get called out to a scene, and all the other cops are like, hey, this is kind of a rite of initiation, is that you're going to have to put down this deer. And I've had to go talk to officers who are like, man, I thought I was big and tough and ready to rumble. And I had no idea that looking at this thing, its big brown eyes looking up at me, I had no idea that was going to rattle me to euthanize a dying animal on the side of a road.
What it feels like is you are executing an innocent life.
Yes. Yeah. And
which is not what it is.
Really surprises people how that feels.
Yeah, but it's not what it is. You're not executing an innocent life. This is like your dog is sick and it's like vomiting everywhere or can't hold its stuff. And so it's just like pooping just all over the place, but can't even move out of it. And you're taking it to the vet. You're doing the compassionate thing of saying, thank you, Bosco, for being my puppy for so long. I'm going to love those 16 years I rubbed your tummy and you licked my feet, but it's time for you not to hurt anymore because it's only going to get worse and you're miserable. Yeah. So you're not walking up and executing an innocent thing. You are letting something that is hurting not hurt anymore. Another thing that I've seen in addition to animals is police officers really struggle with anything child related.
Yeah.
Which makes sense because oftentimes police officers who are in patrol have young families of their own. I got called to a situation that had just happened. It just happened. A child had died. Less than a year old had died in the basement of a house. And so they called me to come out. And I didn't know anything about it except that. So I get out and I start talking to the officers who are on the scene. And it turns out that the mom didn't like that the baby was crying while she was taking care of business in another room. And please, listeners, read between the lines. So she decided to allow there to be fentanyl in the baby's crib. They had done this before, and it shuts the kid up. And so apparently they got the dosage so strong that the baby dies. This is in the basement. So this kid's crib is in the basement. And so I'm walking around. I'm talking to officers who are there to do an instant debrief, an instant defusing to help officers just kind of process this. And so I'm there talking to them. and I'm learning little bits, and they don't want to tell me much because they don't want to traumatize me. And cops care, even if they're hardened, they care. And I'm like, no, please, like, help me understand like what's going on, because all I know is I stopped doing everything else that I'm doing because the county said it's important for me to be here. And so we're talking more, and as I talk to more and more of them, as they're trying to resuscitate this baby, doing CPR and chest compressions, they're trying to resuscitate this baby. They had to keep flicking the roaches off the kid's face, and they were so angry at the people in this house that they would make this child's life not only this, but only this. Like, it didn't get to grow up. This little boy didn't get to grow up. And they were so furious. But I was so proud of the officers. None of them called them losers. None of them acted out. They just called them Mr. Blank and Mrs. Blank and Miss Blank. And they just, just like by the last name, not like a cuss word, but,
right.
Just so professional. And so they just continued to do the job. They were seething, though, underneath. They were seething. And then, as everything is happening, and this whole thing happened, over the course of a half hour as I'm there and we're talking, and I've been there for quite a while at that time, but it was within a half hour of when they came across the child that had died, that they noticed died several hours later. Like, they didn't even check. It was horrific. And they asked, one of the guys comes up and asks the cops, "Can you move your car?" And he goes, "What's going on?" He goes, "I need to meet a friend about some business things." So this guy was going to leave, ask a cop to move his car so he could get in his own car to go meet for a drug deal, either to sell or to get. And the officer goes, "I'm sorry, this is a homicide investigation scene right now. Our cars are not moving at all for hours." And he was just laying into this cop. I need a supervisor. Just laying into this cop that he would not move his car because they're blocking him in from going to go get or sell more drugs. And then that guy's mom came out. So I guess this is the baby's grandma came out, and she started chewing out the cop. And I'm standing there thinking, man, I'm not even this cop that she's yelling at. And I want to just like scream at this lady and say, "You murdered a human. You murdered a human. Either by not doing anything or letting this happen, you murdered a human. How dare you?" Now, but the officers, they were just taking their breaths. And they were just doing the right thing of just, "Well, I'm sorry, that's not possible. This is a homicide investigation. We cannot change anything. You need to just go back inside." It was remarkable. And so I was a part of the debriefing for that as well, because I'm a part of a team that helps just officers get rid of the stress and the trauma, or at least to make it less sharp. And if your department has peer support or is involved in CISM or any of the organizations that exist to help polish off the sharpness of your trauma, I don't want to lay the guilt too much, but if you're not taking advantage of services that are there to help you, you are choosing to let your ego keep you sick. You are choosing to let your ego keep you weak. You are choosing to let your ego make you less than the best that you can be. If I didn't lift weights, heavy weights, intense weights, other things are going to be harder to lift. But because I do the hard thing, which is getting the help from a gym, it makes me better. It makes me more fit, more active, less likely to get messed with, and more able to help people. So if you are struggling with trauma, if you are struggling with going to sleep, there are supports. There are things that are out there just to help you. Laugh, smile, hug your kids. Some of these officers on these calls that I've been to, and that's not the only one, but some of the officers who are on this call, they have a hard time going home and hugging their kid because they see the dead kid that they saw at work 4 years ago. And your kid needs you to be dad. Your kid needs you to be mom. Your kid needs you to laugh at their funny jokes. And if just having a couple of conversations will make that happen, again, man, you owe it to yourself, you owe it to your kids, you owe it to your department, you owe it to your country, your nation, your family, your spouse, to let ego that I can do it myself, to let that lie handicap you, that's dumb.
It's one thing for bad people to be hurting other bad people. We can just sort that out. We can separate them, and we can figure out who is guilty of today's infraction, and we can move on, and we don't have to feel any attachment. But when you're talking about an innocent animal or an innocent child, there's a type of moral injury that happens there where it's like, man, couldn't somebody have stepped in to prevent some of this? And why couldn't I have done something earlier or done something more? And I can't. I feel powerless because this child has been living in this squalor. They have been in this horribly dysfunctional situation. They've been getting abused by these predators, and I didn't prevent it. And then we feel a weird guilt and heaviness because, I mean, most people became police officers because they wanted to rescue, they wanted to save, they wanted to be the hero. And then you see this innocent child suffering, and there's not a darn thing you can do about it.
And they're thinking, like you said, why can't we do anything? Like, what's the point? If we can't even save these kids, and, you know, they're in their head, they're imagining that the situation that's in front of them is a situation that's in almost every house. So they'll drive past, 400 houses. And maybe you, think, okay, those 400 happy families, maybe one or two of them aren't happy. But as a police officer, you always see the worst.
Yeah.
And so when they drive past 400 houses, they're thinking, okay, I don't know what crimes are being done in those houses, but maybe 2 of them aren't totally crap. So 20 of these, someone's getting beat up, 30 of these are snorting coke, 50 of these, the kids are getting molested. They've seen all these bad things, and they imagine that all those situations are bad. When, I don't know the statistics, but they probably only get called to 4% of homes for any particular reason. But in their head, that 4% is 100%.
Because they see everybody's worst day. They only get called when there's problems. And so, yeah, they get to a type of cynicism that says every house is hiding a problem. And that's really not true. In the worst neighborhood, that's still not true. But it feels like it is. It feels like these people are all garbage. This is all horrible. It's all bad all the time. And that can become overwhelming. And like I said, those innocent animals and those innocent children can sometimes really be a sticking point where an officer can get hung up on how tragically wrong it was that an innocent person had to suffer.
Which, not to plug it too much, why is so important. If you can have a chaplain ride around with you, it will help you refocus and see not everybody that you see for 12 hours, not everybody that you see for 2/3 of your waking time that day is absolutely bad. But, you can get out, deal with the crap, and then get back in the car and know, okay, not everything and not everyone is bad. It gives you a great refocus. Now, you can't have a chaplain every time, right? Sorry. If you could just have like a chaplain ride along with you once or twice, it'll break that rut of I'm in the car for 12 hours. Everybody that I see is going to have something messed up with them. They're doing drugs. They're doing violence. They got something in their car. They smell herbal. They don't like cops. They're telling me that I'm a racist. They're telling me that I'm oppressing them. They're telling me that I'm why they're poor or I'm why their dad died. But just having somebody as a ride along in your car who's a healthy adult is going to help you break that story of everyone everywhere is broken and bad. Most people aren't. Most people are just, listening to Dave Ramsey. Shout out to Dave Ramsey, who I'm certain is also listening to your podcast, Jared. But, most people are just listening to people like Dave Ramsey saying, okay, how do I not be poor when I retire? So as a chaplain, one thing I just wanted to toss in there before we sign off is that a lot of times when we get busy, we don't prioritize things that are important. And one of the things that I've picked up as a chaplain is I have noticed that when people are skipping their workouts, our stress goes just through the roof. And it's just, you just can't process things as well. And so one of the things that is so critical is you got to hit your workouts. And it doesn't matter what that workout is. It could be lifting weights. It can be going for jogs. It could be doing CrossFit. It could be doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It could be just something intense and cool because it breaks the mental loop. So as a pastor, I deal with all sorts of stressful things as well, including the things that I see as a chaplain. But, when you're in a congregation, you have people who say that they love you and then they do the dumbest or say the sharpest things, like, Pastor, my favorite thing about your sermon was it was less than 25 minutes. And you're thinking, so you want less? You want less good, or somebody who says, hey, Pastor, just so you know, we're going to get a divorce. It's just, and just letting you know, it's just, there's so much trauma. And so for me also, I have realized I'm a better me when I work out. the most important thing that you can do for stress inoculation and to de-traumatize is going to be have an active relationship with God. The second most important thing, and every study figures this out, every study proves this, is just getting your workouts in. And it doesn't even have to be an hour and a half of powerlifting. It could be a half hour lifting weights. It could be swimming, just something physical that will break the loops, the mental loops, the rumination, the focusing on whatever it is that you've dealt with. You don't have the time to work out. I know. But once you start working out and you say, I'm a never skipper, and maybe you got to listen to Jocko Willink to do that. Shout out to Jocko Willink, who also was listening to your podcast, Jared. I was talking to Jocko the other day, and he was like, have you heard this Jared guy? I'm like, I know this Jared guy. And he was loving it. But hit your workouts, and you will be a better you. You'll be a better dad, a better mom, a better worker, a better employee, better officer, and just a better you. Like, you'll have so much more joy because you're going to be great when you get to the gym. Because that's the thing about working out. You're always better than you were before. So please don't skip your workouts. Please get into that gym.
Thank you, Mark.
Absolutely. My privilege, Jared.
I want to thank Mark for being on the show. He's a pleasure to talk to. And now that I know he makes beef jerky, I have yet another reason to make a stop in St. Louis. The last time I was there was when Mark helped bring me to St. Louis to speak to their chaplain group at one of their training events. I hope to get to see Mark again soon, just hopefully not at 4:30 in the morning. On the next episode of Hey Chaplain.
At the Peace Officer Memorial in St. Paul, I was sitting there, and the Commissioner of Public Safety was there, the Governor was there, and the Commissioner of Public Safety is a friend of mine, and we were on the Chiefs of Police Association together, but it like hit me because I felt like I belonged on that stage. And that's a new feeling for me, because when I was on the Chiefs board, I didn't feel like I belonged. I thought, these people have experiences I'll never have.
This show is free for everyone because of those supporters who are quietly helping behind the scenes. If you want to help this show reach more cops, chaplains, and other first responders around the world, please follow the link in the episode description to support the show. The views expressed here are the personal views of the hosts and our guest and do not necessarily represent the views of any law enforcement agency or its components. If you like this episode, please share it with a cop or someone who loves a cop. Thank you for listening to Hey Chaplain, and as always, pray for peace in our city.